What's up guys, I'm Roderick, aka Rodman, and welcome back to another video. Last video we took a look at the worst areas in every single Souls game. So in this video we're going to be taking a look at the best areas in every single Souls game. Each Souls games have beautiful areas with great level design, with amazing enemies and great bosses. So which ones truly take the cake in each title? If you like retro video gaming, anime, and gameplay videos, don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe for more content just like this. So let's get right into the video. So for the best area in Demon Souls, this was actually pretty difficult because I believe that a strong point in Demon Souls is actually its areas. But I'm gonna have to say the Tower of Latria, just because one aspect of it is very eerie, it's very creepy, and it almost reminds me of a Bloodborne. But that's one aspect of Bloodborne that everybody loves, is its atmosphere, and those two are very similar to me. Latria has some great enemies, it has some great items, and the enemies are like super disgusting, and like they're almost not even like the enemies that you've been fighting throughout the entire game, like knights and skeletons stuff. They're like gross piles of like skin and crazy stuff like that, which I really love, because honestly eventually it gets boring killing dragons and stuff like that. You want to fight something weird and deformed, and the Tower of Latria definitely gives you that. Its dark atmosphere is just amazing. But let's go ahead and move on to Dark Souls 1. So for the best area in Dark Souls 1, I'm gonna definitely say Anor Londo, because this is where I believe the game picks up. A lot of people say Dark Souls 1 actually doesn't start until halfway, and the halfway point is Anor Londo. Obviously, the boss in Anor Londo is probably the most popular boss in the entire Souls series, with Ornstein and Smough. Has a lot of good stuff to offer. It has the iconic Anor Londo archers, which people hate, but I don't think that makes the area bad or anything like that. And on top of that, spoiler alert I guess, but when you revisit this area in Dark Souls 3, it's just like, if it's an area that's bad, you're gonna be like, oh whatever, but it's like, oh crap, it's Anor Londo. And then you fight the boss in Anor Londo in Dark Souls 3 in the same arena that you fought Ornstein and Smough. It's really dope how they do things like that in Dark Souls. But Anor Londo is really dope. I like the way it looks. It's like a city, but it's like the colors that they use, it is really dope to me. It almost reminds me of Lindell in Elden Ring, but yeah, Anor Londo is an amazing area. But let's go ahead and move on to Dark Souls 2. So for the best area in Dark Souls 2, that's pretty hard because Dark Souls 2 has a bunch of areas, because I believe Dark Souls 2, instead of taking place in a kingdom, it takes place on an entire continent, which is pretty insane. But dude, the atmosphere in Drangelic, I believe I'm pronouncing that right, Drangelic Castle, is just insanely beautiful. It is insanely beautiful. Honestly, probably the nicest and dopest castle in the entire series, if you're being honest. It really feels like you're in a castle, like it's completely massive. A lot of the castles in the Souls series, I feel like they feel a bit small. I don't know, maybe that's just me, but this feels like a massive kingdom, a massive castle. One thing is the enemies are kind of lame. Like you see that you're fighting like regular enemies and stuff like that, but when you get into the castle itself, it's super dope, and I really love what they did with this, especially coming from some of the worst areas in the game, such as the Black Gulch and dang frigid outskirts and stuff like that. It's really dope to come, or it's really dope to know that there's areas that are this good in Dark Souls, such as the Drangelic Castle. But this is a toss up though, because there's a lot of areas in Dark Souls 2 that are really, really dope. But this is my personal favorite. Let me know in the comment section what you believe is the best area in Dark Souls 2. So let's go ahead and move on to Dark Souls 3. Just like in Dark Souls 2, there are really amazing areas in Dark Souls 3, and it's very difficult to choose. I was honestly going to say Anor Londo again, just because it's that great of an area, but I'm not going to do that because that's lame. But I believe that Irithel the Boreal Valley, I think I pronounced that right, is the best area in Dark Souls 3, because there's two reasons. Is the atmosphere is insane. It's almost like a dreamy, ethereal feeling that you get from being in this area. And the second reason is Dark Souls 3 is a pretty easy game, but this area is actually quite difficult. You always have to be on your toes when you're in this area. There's a lot of people spamming magic. You can get backstabbed by people. It's insane. You're always on your toes, and it's very, very intense. But overall, this area, I believe, is the best in the entire game. I was gonna say some DLC areas because I guess that's kind of like an easy option, but yeah, the areas with Slave Knight Gale and stuff like that were really dope, but I believe that this right here takes the cake. Just look how amazing and beautiful this area looks. It's insane. It's insane. But let's go ahead and move on to Bloodborne. This choice was so hard, guys. Bloodborne it definitely has my favorite areas in the entire game, or in the entire series. Everybody loves the Lovecraftian horror that Bloodborne brings to the world. It is just beautiful. I was going to say in Cainhurst Castle, but there's just something about the fishing hamlet that just and this might be a crazy comparison, but it almost makes me feel like I'm in Wind Waker. If you guys like Zelda, it almost makes me feel like I'm in a demented Wind Waker, to where I'm Link and these are like, I don't know, choo-choos or something like that. And on top of the fact, the fishing hamlet is where Orphan is. It's one of the best boss fights in one of the best boss fights of all time, out of all gaming, if we're being honest. But the fishing hamlet, look at the atmosphere. It's insane. The enemies are really hard. Those giant sharks, they will melt you. They will absolutely melt you. They'll jump scare you. They'll sneak up on you. You have people spamming magic and reviving. There's hunters here using the blood magic that Lady Maria used. It's amazing. It's an amazing area to this is pretty much going to be the final area that you explore. Because assuming that you do the DLC before you complete the game, this is going to be the final area you explore. It has the hardest enemies, it has the hardest boss in the game, because you go back to the hunter's dream to finish the game. But the fishing hamlet's atmosphere, enemies, and bosses is just overwhelmingly perfect. So let's go ahead and move on to Sekiro. So I believe that the best area in Sekiro is definitely going to be the Fountainhead Palace, because honestly, when I think of Sekiro, I don't necessarily think of the areas, but this area definitely did stand out for me. The aesthetic reminds me of, even though it's a bit stereotypical, but it reminds me of Japan. It has a lot of cherry blossoms and just beautiful, beautiful scenery. And the enemies around here are monstrous. Look at that thing on the ground. Like, what is that? You go from fighting swordsmen to fighting those things, almost divine, monstrous sort of things. And it's terrifying, honestly. So it's like beauty mixed with kind of a horror aspect, which is really dope. On top of that, it offers some of the best and most difficult boss fights in the entire series in this area. With Corrupted Monk almost made me quit the game. And of course, the Divine Dragon, one of the best boss fights in the Soul series. This area is extremely beautiful. It has great bosses, great enemies, and the most memorable area from Sekiro by far. So without further ado, let's move on to Elden Ring. So this was also pretty difficult, but for me, the best area in Elden Ring was Lindale, the royal capital. Why did I love this so much is because the atmosphere is great, and actually a YouTuber that I follow, his name is Ember, he does a lot of Souls content as well. You should go check him out. He says that if you look at all the buildings in Lindale, you can go to any building that you want. You are free to explore the entire capital. You're not limited like you are in Anne Orlando to where you see a giant city but you're only allowed to go to a few buildings. You're free to explore the entire capital, which I found really dope. And specifically, I love the first visit to Lindale, because you do visit this place multiple times if you don't know. But the reason why I love the first visit so much is it actually brings quite a jump up in difficulty. The enemies here are tanky. They'll one shot you, and it's no joke. You got those knights that spam arrows and stuff like that. Like it's very annoying. You have to stay on your toes in this area the first time. But on top of that, this area brings so many amazing boss fights. You have Morgott, great boss fight. You have Godric, great boss fight. And if you don't know, the final boss is literally in the capital. But with Radagon and Elder Beast, it's literally, even though it's not in the capital, that's where you get to them. But I absolutely love this city, and I believe that it's the best area in the whole game. But that's going to wrap it up for this video, guys. If you like this video, don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe for more content just like this. Ramen out. Peace.